Hey, how are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie, here with Fantasy Six Pack on this beautiful Saturday, Christmas Eve, right? It's the 23rd. It's the day before Christmas Eve, and we have a beautiful day of football. There's two games. Cincinnati's at Pittsburgh, and Buffalo is at the Chargers later at SoFi Stadium. But before I get into all that jazz, some over-under stuff, some recent betting trends, and some favorite plays of mine, make sure you get to the website at fantasy6pack.net. And when you get there, you can tell them Beastie sent you. I don't know how much weight that would carry, but I do know you can use promo code FF Playoffs, and that'll get you 25% off any premium package that you're into. And right now, we're just about to kick off Week 16. So if you're still lucky enough to be in the fantasy playoffs, then you're going to look for some rankings and whatever else we got. And again, if you're out of the playoffs, you want some DFS action, some recent betting trends. Me, Dave, and Keith are really carrying the load here at Fantasy Six Pack. So make sure you get there, FF Playoffs, I should say, and we will go from there. When we look at the slate of games, this is kind of strange, right? We're doing a live video. Normally, it's just a DFS video, about 15 or 20 minutes. I get to edit the whole thing. I make some graphics, and we go from there. But I'll tell you a little secret. Those DFS videos, it's just one take anyways. I sit in front of the camera. I speak from my heart. I don't want to say heart. It's not that serious. It's just football. But this is kind of the same thing. There's no do-overs. There's no mistakes. It's not like I swear, say anything off book anyways, but we're going to go through each game. Maybe we'll bounce around. We're going to be about 10 or 15 minutes. And again, it's Saturday afternoon. It's the 23rd. It's about 20 minutes to 4 p.m. Lock is at 4:30. So we're sitting around. Well, maybe we're wrapping presents. We're getting together with our family, putting a little rum in our eggnog, and let's get into it. And when we look at this first game, you're right. It's going to be Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. This game kicks off at 4:30 p.m. Last I looked, it's on NBC, which is channel 4 here in Detroit. The over-under is at about 38 total points. Cincinnati's -3. Pittsburgh is, I don't know, right? When you look at Pittsburgh, everybody's talking about Mike Tomlin is, he should go. He hasn't won a playoff game in a long time, but people are saying Mike Tomlin is still a good coach. But I saw I believe it was a graphic that Bill Belichick has won 2 Super Bowls in the span of time since Mike Tomlin has won a playoff game. Does any of that matter for tonight? Not necessarily. But when we look at this game, we know Jamar Chase is going to be inactive. He's got some AC shoulder joint issues, and that's we heard that well before kickoff happened. So that is nice to see. Not nice that he's out, but it's great that we're not being bombarded with something that's strange right before kickoff. And when we look at this thing, you have Jake Browning versus what's his name, Mason Rudolph. So it's kind of fitting, right? Rudolph and the Reindeers, and we go from there. But so far, in absence of what's his name, Joe Burrow, Jake Browning has come on a little bit. He's thrown for just over 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns so far this season, but 3 interceptions. And when you look at the Steelers, they're kind of they're skidding a little, right? They're 7-7 after they lost 30-13 to Indianapolis last week. Sometime, I know they played Saturday, and you look at Kenny Pickett, he's not going to be active, obviously, but what they got going on in Pittsburgh right now is not where you want to be for a playoff run. When we look for DFS purposes, I did this video, or I haven't done anything yet. We're still broadcasting, but normally I come into this thing with a full stack of notes and a pen and some paper, and I have the guy pricing, and I have DVP, and all that stuff is in my head normally, and I put it out on a piece of paper. I didn't do any paper or notes this time, so it's just a full what you see is what you get thing, and I believe I did that on purpose because, in a way, not to be rude or not to be strange, but let's I want to test myself a little bit. We'll see what we get. And you guys ask questions as we go along here, and it's still going to be some price tags, and just I'm going to speak from here, and we'll see what we get. I've always preached, when you make a line, tinkering is the worst thing you can do, and your first thoughts, your first process is normally the best one, because after that you start to overthink, you get a little bit of stress and anxiety, and then after that it's all downhill. So we're not going to tinker, we're going to be straightforward, and we're going to go for it. So when I'm looking at this game, right, you have have Cincinnati, and by all means, right, they have, as you look at it, they're 4-2 against the spread. Their last 6 against Pittsburgh, and the over is hit in 5 of Cincinnati's last 6 games. So what does that tell us for this game in general? Projected scores looking like 21-17 in favor of Cincinnati, but I think Pittsburgh wins this game. So if Pittsburgh's going to win this game, where does that leave us for DFS purposes? And again, another strange note, which I should have said beforehand, I'm not doing the single game slate thing. I'm doing the 2-game overall thing. If you want to play single game slates, what I say will still be relevant, but I like playing that there's just 2 games, and the cash pools are, as Dave would say, he's so regimented, right? Dictator Dave, as we call him. I said it to his face, and if he's watching, he'll probably get a chuckle, but he's so regimented and by the book. He doesn't like doing anything off script or off book. It throws him off. I don't know, and that's cool. But when we look at this game, Pittsburgh's going to win 20-14. So let's play it backwards. How do we get to these points here? And again, no Jamar Chase, Jake Browning going against this Pittsburgh defensive line, who's 8th overall against opposing quarterbacks. He's 7-8 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, Jake Browning is $6,100. You're going to get the typical 19 to 20 completions, around 220 yards. And I think obviously given the score, he throws for 1 touchdown, and the Cincinnati Bengals, they're going to find a second touchdown, but in what manner? Is it going to be Mixon? Is it going to be Chase Brown? And that is the question. And again, in a 2-game slate like this, you want to get, if you're going to play a cash game, then you're going to be looking for Mixon, right? If you want to get a little bit strange and weird, which is what I live for, then Chase Brown, the rookie, is going to be your guy. And when you look at his price tag here, it's beautiful. He's 5-2 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Chase Brown's only $4,900. And again, Mixon's going to get the multitude of carries, but it's kind of the same thing where, you know, Mixon is the RB1. He's the tried and true stud RB1, but you have these fresh young legs just chomping at the bit to get going, and he is absolutely explosive. It's kind of reminiscent, and the only reason I bring this up is because throughout the day, you know, I'm looking at tomorrow's slate and people are asking me questions on Twitter. My friends or my family's calling me, what are we going to do with Devin and Shane? It kind of, you know, Chase Brown, I know when you compare the 2 talents, Shane right now looks to be ahead of Chase Brown minus the injury issues. But right now, Chase Brown can be a tad bit more explosive than what we're used to, with it being week 16 of the grind of an NFL season. So in GPPs, I'm going to have heavy exposure to Chase Brown as one of my RBs. James Cook's going to be the second one, but that is the second game. On the opposite side of things, it's Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. And it's been, you know, before the season started, it was not, we knew about Jay Warren, right? The young kid, he's quick. He's got some, you know, he's got some legs about him and he can get some things done, but we didn't know he was going to be catching passes and being as explosive as, you know, Najee Harris, who's been, you know, plain Jane, steady Eddie kind of guy, but that's cool. Najee Harris in cash games and in seasonal formats is in a way, a godsend, right? A true set it and forget it running back, which is kind of not in today's day and age. You can't say that about a lot of guys anymore. Even Derrick Henry, not saying Henry's fallen off, but that's the kind of people I think of when you say set it and forget it, right? Justin Jefferson, he's not even been able to be set it and forget it. So when we look at Najee Harris, he makes for a good safe bet today, right? You look at him, 6-1 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he's 5,000 even. And again, these 2 guys have been splitting carries, right? Early in the season, it was Najee Harris. Jaylen Warren started getting more run. You see it like a 30-yard touchdown reception, 20-yard touchdown reception. And you're like, oh, wow, Jaylen Warren can be in there. And he's not a secret anymore. So to me, the way to go about this game, if you're going to play the single game slate, it would be Chase Brown and Jaylen Warren, MVP captain, and then vice versa. You know what I'm saying, right? You put Chase Brown MVP captain, and then Warren in the flex, and then you flip it around and we go from there. When we look at the wide receivers here, no Jamar Chase makes it makes things interesting. It kind of makes Trenton Irwin a thing again, right? We talked about him over the season. He's been mentioned bottom of the barrel a lot. He made enough noise that even my compadre Dave mentioned him, and Dave doesn't really, not saying that he doesn't dig deep on his own, but again, Dave is more of a cash guy. What you see is what you get, and we go from there. Trenton Irwin, in absence of Jamar Chase, he was kind of a thing, right? So again, in GPPs, Trenton Trenton Irwin is on my radar, especially on today's slate when we have Pittsburgh in Cincinnati. And again, Pittsburgh right now 17th overall against opposing wide receivers. Chris, why aren't you mentioning T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd? Because you already know that. I'm assuming, I do this all the time, I'm assuming that the viewers or you that read my content, you're not stupid. You're not idiots. You just need a little bit of reassurance every once in a while, and you go from there. So to me, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd very much in play. But when you look at their price tags, right? T. Higgins, $7,800 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, T. Higgins, $6,500. So more of a DraftKings thing for me when we're looking at T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd only 4.6 on DraftKings, and Boyd on FanDuel only $5,900. So of the two, when you're looking at ownership percentage, I would probably side with Tyler Boyd. So far we're looking at Chase and Jaylen Warren with a sprinkle of Trenton Irwin. And I will say this, even with or without Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Tanner Hudson, has been a thing, right? He's seen at least 4 or 5 targets a game over at this rate, I would say the last 5 to 6 games, because when I did the same spiel maybe a few weeks ago, he had 4 or more targets in 5 straight games. So that was 2 weeks ago. You add 2 and you're looking at 6 or 7 if my math is mathing up right. So to me, Tanner Hudson also in play makes for a great move in Pittsburgh right now, 20th overall against opposing tight ends. So Tanner Hudson, that safety blanket for a guy like Jake Browning, who at first Jake Browning needed a little safety blanket, but now the guy's showing up to the field. He's prepared. He's doing his thing and he's rolling. On the Pittsburgh side of things, Deontay Johnson or George Pickens, right? In all the optimizers and simulations that I've been running, Deontay Johnson is popping up and he's flashing like neon lights. That gives me pause, but it also says one of 2 things. He makes for a good cash play, but in GPPs, you're probably going to want to fade him. And again, there's been a lot of questions about what was I going to say? When you look at Deontay Johnson or George Pickens, ownership percentage, and if a guy is like blinking like that, well, I knew what I was going to say. A lot of people have named podcasts or articles and made a living off the idea of fading the noise, right? And you look at the questions are coming in. I'll get to you, Dion, and in just a moment here. And so if Deontay Johnson is popping up in everything that we're doing, on such a small slate, it's going to be a wash or free squares. People, I hate that term in DFS, but Deontay Johnson, $7,000 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, Deontay Johnson is $5,100. And Mike, if you want to bring that question up, Dion Walrod, is it Higgins or Waddle? Right? In this instance, it's got to be, to me, it's got to be Waddle, right? And again, that it is. It could be a little bit strange, right? Because we're going to be watching normally T. Higgins and Waddle. It's on a Sunday, right? Maybe both games are at 1:00. So you put them in and boom, what happens. But now if you fade Higgins and you put Waddle in, you get to watch the whole game. You get to watch Higgins. And if he puts up 70 yards and a touchdown, you're going to be cursing my name and you're going to be waiting. You're going to have to go to bed. You're going to have to wait for Waddle to play tomorrow. But on the safe side, while we have some time, we're about 13 minutes in, just about done with the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game. Dion, if you get a pen or a piece of paper, write this down. I'll give you some projections from each guy. When we type it in, we'll look at T. Higgins. I have T. Higgins as the computer loads. Got a slow thing. About 6 or 7 targets. You're looking at about 4 to 5 receptions for around 70 yards. So if you're playing in a PPR format, you're looking at what's 7 plus 5? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're looking at about 12 to 13 points. On the safe side, let's just say 14 points. He's only scored 4 touchdowns on the year. And I know what you're thinking. No Jamar Chase. Give me a little bit of T. Higgins action. But let's type in Waddle here. And by everything that I've seen, granted, we're going completely off script, but that's fine. Jaylen Waddle, I have about 8 or 9 targets, 6 to 7 receptions, and around 85 to 90 yards. So just based on receptions and yardage alone, I would go Waddle, but I'm telling you now, it's going to be tough sledding because Higgins is playing today. So anything T. Higgins does today, you're going to be like, I wish I would have played him, but it's all good because we get to what's his name, Waddle tomorrow, and things will be okay. So give me Waddle. As we were finishing up the Cincinnati and Pittsburgh game, Allen Robinson is a shell, Calvin Austin III, nothing going on there. Although Cincinnati right now 20th overall against opposing wide receivers. The move to make for Pittsburgh in terms of wide receivers not named Deontay Johnson would be Pat Freiermuth. So again, we're getting a game here where I have the final score. I'm doing everything backwards, right? I have Pittsburgh winning around 20 to 21, and Cincinnati putting up around 14 points. So you're looking at about 4 to 5 touchdowns overall. So I have Chase Brown, Jalen Warren, and both tight ends. If you're going to play the single game slate, let's do that tight end shuffle, as I always like to do. Tanner Hudson, MVP captain, and Freiermuth in the flex, and we'll run it back again, vice versa. So there's 4 little GPP plays for you. As I said, Chase Brown, Jalen Warren, Tanner Hudson, and Pat Freiermuth. When we move on to the second leg of today's action here, we get the Buffalo Bills go from their not comfortable confines. It's probably cold, nasty, just like it is here in Detroit, Michigan, but they go all the way to the West Coast to that beautiful SoFi Stadium. And this one kickoff is at 8 p.m. And if I'm not mistaken, it's available on Peacock. No affiliation, but just letting you people know where you can find this stuff here. So you get the Buffalo Bills at the Chargers, and this game's going to go exactly how we think it's going to go, right? As it stands now, the Bills are minus 12.5 points. So the Chargers, they're at home. They're a home underdog, and they're plus 12.5. I mean, that's crazy, but final score, I'll give it to you right off the bat. And if you split, you split, but Buffalo's going to win this thing around 31-7. So there's not much action to be going on from the Chargers, and it's a bummer, right? The Chargers are basically dead in the water, lame duck, whatever. I think that's more of a political term, like a dead duck, or something like that. When a first term congressman or a senator, they're not going to be voted. They're just a lame duck president or senator, whatever, something like that. But the Chargers right now, it's just complete turmoil, right? Their head coach is gone, and Easton Stick is their quarterback. Justin Herbert, who I really enjoy watching play, had a hand or finger surgery, and there's just not much going on. They went from supposedly a favorite to make the playoffs and maybe compete for a divisional title against the Chiefs, but that's just not happening. And now they get to face Buffalo at home on the eve of Christmas Eve, and it's not going to be good. Let's look at the players just for the sake of it. And as it stands now, Buffalo, they're 3-7 their last 10 games, but last time out, they absolutely beat the shit out of Dallas, and that was a fun game to watch. I mentioned it briefly on yesterday's DFS Den with Dave, that Buffalo's finding themselves, right? And that's a scary thing. And I was just told right before we went live that Leonard Fournette has been made active. He's been brought up from the practice squad to be on the field and the sidelines in pads for the Buffalo Bills. So again, that tells you a little bit of things, right? So we look at this game from a 10,000 foot view, and you see, well, Buffalo, they're minus 12.5 points. They're going to put up 30. The Beastie saying they're going to put up 31 points. Leonard Fournette is active. What does that tell you? So there's a story behind all of this stuff, right? And I'll get to it. But let's start with Josh Allen. You look at him, 9.5 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he is $8,100. By far and away the most favorable quarterback if you're playing the 2-game slate, given everything that's going around here. Jake Browning would be the second one, and then it would probably go Josh Allen, Jake Browning, and then we have Mason Rudolph, and I would even prefer Easton Stick over Mason Rudolph. And how are you going to say that when you have Cincinnati to score 14? I just think Easton Stick is just going to be attempting 50 passes in this game, but only scoring 7 points. So just by picking up the pace and playing from behind alone, Easton Stick is a long shot GPP play. And so from when you say it like that, it's strange because GPPs already a long shot. So you're going to make it is that a thing, a double long shot? I don't even know. But Josh Allen, you're going to look at probably your 300 yards. You're looking at around 3 total touchdowns in any form or fashion. I'm thinking 2 in the air and 1 on the ground. He's been very active as of late, and it's been great to see. When Buffalo's rolling and humming, the AFC and the NFL in general is just a more fun thing to be, because if you look back, maybe I'm wrong here, a few weeks ago, Buffalo was, they were in the dumps. They weren't playing as well. And it just seemed like it didn't seem like time stopped. It's not that serious. But when Buffalo was, like a bummer, not playing well, things weren't as interesting and as an exciting, right? And when Buffalo's rolling, now we know that the AFC is not just one sided, right? With Kansas City and Miami, right? We have another team, Buffalo, which has always been in the mix the last few years in the AFC Championship game, for God's sakes. But they've been, kind of slow and bumming people out. But now, after what they did to Dallas and what they're going to do to the Chargers today, Buffalo will officially be back and rolling. So they're all hands on deck for their offense. But when we look at that offense, right, it's James Cook has been an absolute superstar. He's 8-5 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he's $6,900. And we know what we're going to get out of James Cook. I'm thinking 14 to 15 carries, 85 yards at minimum, a touchdown. He's going to catch 4 or 5 passes, maybe catch a touchdown pass. So James Cook, to me, of the entire 2-game slate, is probably the most not polarizing, but the most important player of today's overall slate. And his price tag is still relative. It's okay in comparison to when you look at a guy like Eckler, who I want nothing to do with, who's $6,800 on FanDuel. But to me, James Cook is in play. Latavius Murray, he's one of those guys, right? And now that they brought up what's his name, Leonard Fournette, Latavius Murray isn't all that interesting anymore, right? James Cook is going to get his, but you can trust Latavius Murray for a handful of carries, and maybe that could be true. We're talking about Leonard Fournette, and it could be all just smoke and mirrors, right? He's just up and he's going to play. Maybe as the producer, Mr. Mike LaPlante, thank you for being here with me on a Saturday afternoon, said, hey, yeah, I could see the light bulb go on in his head when he said, oh, maybe that's what they're doing with Leonard Fournette. Maybe they're going to be able to rest James Cook in the fourth quarter if the game's going to be as out of hand as we think it is. But is it going to be Latavius Murray or Leonard Fournette? To me, it's a wash either way. When we look at the wide receivers for Buffalo, that's where you want to be. Stephon Diggs is expensive enough, 8-9 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, Diggs is 8-7. He is a lock for a touchdown. Anytime touchdown bet, you can book that, and we'll move on. When you look at Gabe Davis, there's something about Gabe Davis that he's got all the talent in the world, but if you look at his game log, it's like 55 points or it's a 0, and then it's like 45 points and then it's a 0. And I'm not kidding. It's 0, a ton of points, 0, a ton of points. And to right now, last week it was a 0. So if you're just going to play the odds that way, you're looking at like a 20+ point game from Gabe Davis. No rhyme or reason for that, but there it is. It's just a overall odds in an odd way. It is a little bit of reasoning. And the Chargers right now, 30th overall against wide receivers. So to me, the move would be Khalil Shaker, right? He is $5,000 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he's only $3,500. And he's had some big games this season, but he's kind of fallen. I don't want to say fallen out of favor, but he's kind of taken a back seat again. And this is where he can come back and flourish again in a game where it's just going to be, like duck hunting, right? Just boom, 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 boom for Josh Allen. So give me all the Khalil Shaker we can want. And when you look at the tight ends for Buffalo, Dawson Knox used to be the man in town, but he's been out and hurt, and they drafted Dalton Kincaid, but Kincaid hasn't been so hot the last few weeks. And so again, it's like a coming out party, how can I put this? A re-coming out party for a couple of these the Buffalo Bills team in general, and also Gabe Davis and the rookie Dalton Kincaid. You remember before the season started, there was all this talk. Kincaid, is he better than Sam Laporta? Is Laporta? I'm not here to talk about all that nonsense, because it's clear. But when you look at what Dalton Kincaid can do tonight, it can be special. And he's $6,000 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he's only $5,000. And the Chargers right now, DVP wise, 23rd or 24th overall against tight ends. So Dalton Kincaid, 4 to 5 receptions. You're looking at around 40 to 50 yards. Does he find the end zone? More than likely, because Buffalo right now projected at around 28 points. I have them at 31 total points. On the Charger side of things, everything in my in my being would tell me we're going to want to fade the Chargers just all completely together, right? Because everybody and their mother is going to be stacking up Buffalo in GPPs and cash games. So everybody's going to be tying at the top. We're going to be splitting, all the funds at the top here. But there is still some money to be made with the Chargers. But we have to be very careful with how we pick and prod our Chargers here. And George has a question really quick. George, Devonta Smith or Jalen Warren, I'm assuming, half point PPR. Well, like I always do, old school, I used to do a live Facebook show for a group, and I need to start doing that again. That was so much fun. I would just do questions for like an hour, and I would just talk like we are now, and I would look up each player and give you projections. So let's do it right here. And you said Devonta Smith, aka Skinny Batman, as Travis Kelce has put up. Last I looked, Devonta Smith is, I believe he's like 43 yards away from 1,000 for the season. That is a lock. I have Devonta Smith 7 to 8 targets, 5 to 6 receptions, around 55 to 60 yards. So far, Smith is averaging around 12.9 to 13 yards a reception, or Jalen Warren, which is today. So again, it's one of those cases where, if you're gonna put off, if you're gonna put off playing Devonta Smith and watch Warren play, or vice versa. When we look at Jalen Warren, kind of went through some of what he's going to do. I have Warren though for about 10 or 11 carries, 50 to 55 yards, and around 4 to 5 receptions for another 25 to 30 yards. So you're looking at around 70 to 80 all-purpose yards plus the 3 or 4 receptions. So to me, it would be Jalen Warren. It's going to be close, a couple points away, but give me Warren. And again, today it's Saturday. We get to watch the game. When you play in when it's a special, like a Thanksgiving Day slate or something like this, I always like to play the guys that I can sit down comfortably and watch. Not to say you can't watch Devonta Smith tomorrow, but Pittsburgh, I have them to win. As I said, around 21 to 14, and Warren is going to be heavily involved and active. As we get back to the Chargers side of things, we're coming up on 26 minutes. I knew it was going to go over. I said 15 to 20 minutes. Who are we kidding? When we look at Austin Eckler, the guy's been a complete a hump, to be honest, and it's not really his fault, right? The coaching staff, which has been completely gutted. Coach Staley is gone, and the Chargers are, as I said, a sad sack right now, and it looks to be they're using Isaiah Spiller and Josh Kelly more than Isaiah Spiller. So to me, just on his price tag alone, Austin Eckler is off the table. I would prefer Isaiah Spiller or Josh Kelly in the single game slate, or if you're going to play the 2-gamer, as I am doing this afternoon. When we look at their wide receivers, there's not much going on. You get Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnson, Jalen Guyton. I've gone out on a limb for all 3 of these guys at least one point or another this season, and I've gotten nothing in return. And you look at the Buffalo Bills right now, 15th overall against opposing wide receivers. Of the 3, it would be in that order. It would be Palmer, Johnson, and Guyton. But again, it could just be flipped on its head in reverse and be, Guyton, Johnson, and Palmer based on what Easton Stick can do. And just for the heck of it, right, I said I have Easton Stick to attempt about 50 passes. And it was kind of a joke and kind of for fun, let's say. But let's look him up and see what I have specifically for Easton Stick. I have him completing around 23 to 24 passes on around 40 attempts, looking at around 250 yards and 1 touchdown pass, an interception or 2, and a carry, or maybe a scramble or 2 for another 10 or 15 yards. So to me, he's going to throw a touchdown pass. And if I'm going to run the odds here, where is it going to go? More than likely, to be honest with you, more than likely, I would put my money on Gerald Everett, their tight end. And when you look at Everett here, he is 5-2 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Gerald Everett is $3,500. Buffalo right now, 6th overall against opposing tight ends. So before we get out of here, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Merry Christmas. We've gotten a few questions in here. Alberto, thank you. Merry Christmas to you as well. We're going to have a wonderful Saturday evening, dusk, however you want to put it, of football games. And again, Cincinnati's at Pittsburgh. I have Cincinnati winning this one. Let's just call it 21 to 14. And then we have the Buffalo Bills at the Chargers tonight on Peacock. And I have Buffalo to win around 31 to 7, right? It would be a little bit It's the Christmas season. Let's give the Chargers 10 points, shall we? So you can maybe, if you wanted to play Dicker the kicker for the Chargers, he'll get an extra point in a field goal. He had a phenomenal kind of vote me into the Pro Bowl. Looked like a political kind of ad for Dicker the kicker. So before I split, make sure you get to Fantasy Six Pack. And when you get there, use promo code FF Playoffs. You get 25% off your any premium package you want. You can find me and Dave and Keith and even Mike and anybody else, the world renowned rankings here at Fantasy Six Pack in the Discord. You'll get all access there at only $9.99 is the cheapest plan we offer. And you get 25% off that. So for everybody out there, be good, be safe. Merry Christmas, and I will see you again soon, probably tomorrow, as we talk Christmas Eve Sunday Night Football. See you later.